Hello everybody, to my viewers here. This is going to be a video basically talking about the election. I've seen a lot of things online. There's a lot of things going around, a lot of these rumors. I'm kind of here to address, so I'm trying to kind of cater this more towards the Democratic side of YouTube. You Republicans are fine to listen to. I just want to clarify some of the things that's really going to be happening here. I was around. I had a live stream for that election. I was watching, so we all know who won.
At this point, we can project Donald Trump will be the 47th president of the United States.
So I kind of want to talk about and just address some of the things I've been seeing online. First and foremost, I don't really have like a lot of social media. Like really, the only social media I have is like a default messaging app on my phone, Gmail, Discord, and Snapchat. Then I even barely use Snapchat. So I guess YouTube, if you want to count that as social media. But I don't really have a lot. Like I don't watch the news, but I've heard a lot of things, particularly like, oh, this is what's going to happen now that he's in office, all this stuff. So I kind of just wanted to address some of these. So what's going to happen now that Trump's in office? Obviously, he's been saying like, he's going to have the border secured. He's going to end the war in Ukraine. He's going to do all this stuff like drilling oil, all this stuff to get the economy back up and running. He's gonna cut down on energy bills like 50%. He said 50. His exact wording was 50%. Cut the energy prices down, lower the taxes, all that. But there's also been like some of these things going around that he's like, there's you got these people that are genuinely like scared and afraid because they're over here. They're going to arrest, the LGBTQ plus community. They're going to arrest us. They're going to impress us. They're going to do all this stuff. That's not going to happen. I know that's not going to happen. I don't know. I sincerely believe that is a bit of like a fear-mongering kind of thing. Like, I don't know. Both parties will say things to get you to not vote for the other candidate. So, this kind of goes around. But I feel like if things kind of got that way, if that's the impression that kind of came off, I think things kind of got a little too extreme. When you're using fear to control people and basically tell them, hey, this is what you should think, this is what you should do, that's not a good thing. There's a really good quote from a movie called The Never-Ending Story. I don't know if you've ever watched it. It's a great movie. It was also a book. But basically the quote goes,
"But why?"
Because people who have no hopes are easy to control. And whoever has the control has the power.
And that's a true statement, because if you control what people fear and you tell them, hey, you should fear this, and when they get afraid, they're going to go running to you, and then once they're going to you, you basically control them because they are afraid. That's usually kind of what happens here. So you're going to be fine. The world's not going to end. I just want to point out here, he was president from like 2016 to 2020. The world didn't end then. And as a matter of fact, he was the only president in America to have been in office when there wasn't any wars going on. To not have been brought into a war, not have started a war. The only president that's done that. And that's the thing. And there's also like all these statements, that's like, oh, Trump and like all of his followers that do this are like sexists and racists. No, we're not. I would say, especially when it comes to like the LGBTQ community, a lot of Republicans or conservatives, we don't really mind those people. You're gonna get some that's, you're gonna get some that's not gonna really like. That's in every group. There's always gonna be like those few people that, will always make things look bad. The Democrats have that small group of people that do that. The Republicans have that small group of people that do that. So I'm not saying every single one of them will. I'm just saying, that's generally how it tends to be, at least in my experience with the ones I've been with. No, as a matter of fact, Donald Trump just put in like the first female cabinet member of the position that he just appointed. So that's pretty cool. No, like I don't know, just kind of look around at some of the evidence. I know Trump did kind of help out a little bit with the LGBTQ community, although the media never really brought that to light. Not sure why, but he did. I don't know. I'd recommend you look into it. Another thing I've seen a lot is both parties, actually, so I'm going to kind of throw out some flack on both parties here. They always throw around the term, oh, they're a threat to democracy. Oh, no, our democracy's in trouble, all this stuff.
Equal threat to democracy. She's a threat to democracy.
To say this genuinely could be the last democratic election we ever have.
You're right.
Listen.
The United States is not a democracy. This is an interesting thing I see because both sides throw around the term, oh, we're a democracy. We need to keep that. We need to protect it. If you go all the way back to the Founding Fathers, Benjamin Franklin actually, when he was asked what kind of government we were after they just wrote the Constitution, after they just formed the new government, people went up to Benjamin Franklin, hey, what kind of government are we? And Benjamin Franklin said, a republic, if you can keep it. That kind of people kind of found out what he meant by that because there was some people that kind of started to change things because Benjamin Franklin was like, the moment people just, like, not even thinking, just start throwing around the term democracy and accept that we're a democracy, he's like, that's when the United States has failed. So wherever democracy started getting thrown in is where the United States started to fail. I mean, the American dream's still alive. All that's still good. The nation's not... we're not going down in flames. We're not going to... the world's not ending, guys. I can say that confidently. But it's just interesting that both parties throw around the term that we're a democracy, but the Founding Fathers specifically said we're not. No, we're a republic. We specifically are a constitutional republic, which I'm going to tell the differences here. So a constitutional republic, we have this piece of paper called the Constitution. It's kind of in the name. That it basically tells us this is what we can do and this is what we cannot do. So we got the can-dos and the can't-dos, and then the middle ground in between. It protects our rights. It gives us our basic rights, our freedom of speech, press, religion, assembly, all this stuff. The Second Amendment, which I will be talking about later because I feel like people kind of misinterpret why we have the Second Amendment. But in a constitutional republic, there's elections, there's all this stuff. It is majority rule, but it also protects the rights of the minorities, which is good. And a constitutional republic basically focuses on the mentality of individual liberty. That's what it focuses on. A democracy is kind of similar, but kind of very different too. A democracy also has, elections. They also vote. It is majority rule, but that's it. It just stops there. It's just majority rule. It doesn't protect the rights of the minority, though. So majority rule, if you had a crowd of people that just decided, hey, let's go kill this person, then that would be majority rule, but the minority would be the person they're killing, and that's not good. That's why we're not a democracy, or at least we shouldn't be shooting to be one, because if the majority rules, the minority groups are not going to be protected, which is a big no-no. We don't want that. And a democracy tends to focus on the ideology of government-promised universal equality. Government promised, which never completely works out. It doesn't work because things cannot be 100% equal, scientifically, mathematically, religiously, when it comes to government. Like, you can't have everything be equal. It's just not possible. There are things that's going to have differences, and there's a reason why things have differences, because the things that have weaknesses, the other one will make up for. Like, take a relationship, for example. Some person may not be, the best at... What's a good example here? Cooking. Somebody may not be the best at cooking, but they're really good at working and making money. The other one doesn't really compete on the same level, or doesn't want to work, or just isn't as good at working, but is really good at cooking. So use the weaknesses of each other and use the strengths of each other to build off each other's weaknesses. That's probably the best example to use in this. So, I mean, I'm not saying things shouldn't be as fair as possible. I'm just saying you can't make everything equal. It's just not gonna work. It never works. So that's kind of the difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic. I just want to throw that out there. The fact that both parties are throwing that around, I don't know, kind of saddens me. But yeah, I mean, that's what the Founding Fathers said. We're a republic. In the Pledge of Allegiance, we say, and to the republic for which it stands. We don't say, and to the democracy, or something like that. We say, and to the republic. And, we are one nation under God, which that line was added by, I believe, FDR in the 1940s to the Pledge of Allegiance. So, a Democratic president added that line, by the way. Actually, let me just kind of go into the history of the Democratic Party. So, if you've made it this far into the video, that's great. I'm trying to reach as many different people, Republicans, Democrats, even Libertarians, Constitutionalists, Whigs, all the other independent parties as well. If you made it this far into the video, I kind of want to give my reason for my vote, because by now I'm going to say I did vote Trump. I did vote Republican, and I kind of want to give my thoughts on this because I kind of have different thoughts when it comes to like that kind of stuff. I guarantee a lot of people probably just clicked away now, but I want to give my reasons here. So, the Democratic Party, if you look back in history, it was the Democrats. It was the Democratic Party that fought to keep the slaves. It was the Democratic Party that created the Jim Crow laws, and Jim Crow was a member of the KKK. It was the Democratic Party that fought to pretty much ban lynching. It was the Democratic Party who just put all this progress against civil rights acts for the African American community as well as the women community. And done other things like FDR. I think FDR was one of the best Democratic presidents we've had. There is some things that he still did do that's kind of not that good. FDR was the same person who put all the Japanese people in America in POW camps in World War II. I mean, obviously it wasn't like a Holocaust level of thing that, Hitler was doing. But there was still a lot of deaths because there was a lot of disease. They didn't put as much food and water supplies as they should have. It was a terrible thing. And it took a long time for apologies to come out for that. But yeah, if you just look at what the Democratic Party has done throughout history, and they've just been limiting the progression of the actual good things that's happened in this country, that's kind of why I just don't vote for them. Because people are like, oh, well, they changed now. I don't think they have, because they're still using minority groups that they are secretly, they're just like, hey, support us, we'll give you what you want, and when we don't need you anymore, you're expendable. That's kind of what I get, but I'll talk about why I think that way. I mean, I don't attack like, Democrat. I don't even attack anybody really. It's just Democratic voters I like talking to, I like seeing their perspectives, because there is something I actually don't agree with on Trump. It's the, I've already said this earlier, but it's like the oil thing. Yes, it will cheapen the prices, it'll lower the prices because we're getting our own oil and we're not buying it from other countries. But I still am a bit of a fan of renewable energy, which he is going to kick into, but not as much as the Democrats do. That's like the one thing I do like about the Democrats. They definitely do more things for the environment. But here's another thing. Let me throw out some history of what the Republican Party has done. It was Teddy Roosevelt who put in national parks and put in laws for conservation things. The person who passed the Clean Air Act to pretty much limit industries and companies from polluting the air. It was Ronald Reagan, a Republican candidate. So both parties do things for the environment. Trump is just kind of different when it comes to those things. So, just kind of wanted to throw that out there. Just in terms of looking at history, which is, I looked at history and I kind of came to the conclusion, it's this one party that's been doing all of this stuff. And that's kind of what made me decide what I was going to be, because I didn't want, to just adopt the ideology my parents had. I wanted to actually form my own thoughts. And that's kind of what I came to the conclusion on, of me being, a big history buff. I've read into governments. I've read into what's happened in the dictatorships, what's happened under the communist regimes. And I've looked into what led to going there and how we can prevent that. And, there's a lot of people that's thinking, oh, this is going to be a dictatorship. Trump's going to be a dictator. I don't think he is. Actually, as a matter of fact, I know he's not. You couldn't even do it because we're a three-party system. But you're like, but they just red sweeped everything. Well, yes, but still. That's just not how that works. If you look at a dictatorship with some of the things that's happened before then, you'll compare some differences. Like if you look at how Hitler got into power and if you look at how Trump got into power, it's very different for how things were. When a government takes guns away from people, there has been some instances where they just straight up one night just took them all. But there are some that's put restrictions on things, making it hard to get ammo or hard to get parts for a gun. And they put all these restrictions on until one day it's basically impossible to own a gun. And then after that, once they find and trace all the people that are currently owning a weapon before those restrictions came out, that's when they go in and take them. And I do want to speak about the Second Amendment here. So, the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms, and it shall not be infringed. So, the Second Amendment was created by the Founding Fathers because they just fought a revolutionary war against Britain, against being under Britain's power as a regime that they wanted to break free of. So they created the Second Amendment, not for self-defense and not for hunting. They did it to protect against government tyranny. That is the main reason the Second Amendment exists. There's people that are like, no, it exists for self-defense. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Self-defense is a natural, God-given, born from birth, self-defense is a natural right. That is listed elsewhere in the Constitution. The Second Amendment is solely to protect against foreign and domestic enemies, specifically against government tyranny. So when the government gets out of hand, they do actually start arresting, they start doing dictator things, which is not going to happen. But if they do it, it's up to us to do that. And people are like, yeah, but we don't need we don't need AR-15s and all that stuff. I'm like, okay, well, I need you to think about the government real quick and the military. Do you think we're all going to be able to just fight off an entire army with just pistols, just 9mm Glocks? I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it is highly unlikely that we will win. That is why we need to have some restrictions. I get it. There's a lot of things that's been happening. There's been school shootings. There's been a lot of this violence, but that you don't blame the car for drunk driving. And that's the same reason you shouldn't blame the gun for the shooting. You should be blaming the person that's doing it, or the person that's behind the wheel. If you have that logic, then it makes perfect and clear sense. Yeah. Like, there's other problems that I think need to be addressed. Like, the education system, I think, is a huge thing that needs to be addressed. RFK, which I am kind of glad that Trump is putting him in somewhere. He's putting him in charge of food. But still, I think that's great. Education system really needs... It's more than just education. It leads to other things. Because you have these teachers that are being treated like crap. You have the school administrations that are literally doing anything to pass the kids just so they can have good high grades overall for their school, so they can get more money and do more things. They're doing literally anything they can to pass kids, and there's kids that just sit there or don't even show up to school half the time. So, and the curriculum they're not teaching... I've noticed a lot of people that's coming out of high school that don't really basically know the government. Now, granted, sometimes it's just not them paying attention, but this large amount of kids, no, there's something wrong. There's people that don't know about the Japanese people being in POW camps in World War II in America. There's people that don't really know too much about slavery. I mean, there's this big old political thing. I look at history the way it is. There's some people that are like, oh, the Civil War was fought for slavery, and there's also people that are like, no, it wasn't. It was fought because the state seceded the Union. I'm like, no, it was fought for both. And actually, in the original beginning, the South seceded because they wanted to fight against their slaves leaving, because that would have been a massive economic loss for them. And I mean, people in the North were like, no, we don't care. They're still people. You got to go. Abraham Lincoln, though, was still kind of skeptical because he didn't know, he wasn't like 100% sure if the people would support him if he was saying like, oh, we need to free the slaves. So at first, the North was fighting it because the state seceded. But once the Gettysburg Address was given by Abraham Lincoln, that's when he said, no, we're doing this more because they seceded. It's bigger than that. He said, no, we are fighting this to free the slaves so they can have rights. And that's officially when Abraham Lincoln kind of gave his statement to the people out there. So it was kind of fought for both. I don't know why there's an argument that it was only fought for this or only fought for this. No, it was a collective reasoning of both put together. And then that's just an example. The education system, they need to teach history. And especially when it comes to like world conflicts, like World War I and World War II, they need to teach more than just the American perspective. I mean, yeah, they talk about the Holocaust and all this, but they don't mention really anything about the Japanese and Chinese side of the conflict. They don't mention any of the things leading up to how Hitler got to power, or how Stalin actually killed more people than Hitler did. But Stalin is like the second most highest fatality world leader, because Mao in China was the highest death. Like he he killed the most people. Like I don't know. That's why I'm going into a history teacher. Now obviously when you're a teacher, you're supposed to leave your political views out of this, which I do completely support. Leave your political views out of it. Just don't do that. Let the kids form their own thoughts. So I mean that's kind of what I think for education. But there's a lot of problems. There's students that don't want to pay attention. There's teachers that's being treated like crap, and I think it really all leads down to the parents, or just the home they were raised in. Like they're just not taught basic things really anymore, because they just hand them a tablet and they just kind of do whatever the kid wants. I mean, they need to learn that there are certain things you do. I mean, yes, when you are born, you naturally scream and hit when you're angry or when you want something. You just naturally do that. But a good parent is supposed to kind of teach them, hey, no, this is not what you're supposed to do. You got to teach them. I mean, there's a whole other political thing with, like, you know, spanking and all that stuff. I personally, like, obviously not like full on beating. No, that's terrible. Like, don't do that. Just like a little bit of, like, you know, a little bit of discipline, I think is good to have. But you know, don't be like full out like freaking punching like that. That's kind of messed up. But I don't know. It's just, I think people are gonna really think I'm crazy when I say I would not give my child a phone until they are 16. Like, there's just so much that goes on the internet. I'm like, no, I wouldn't. Maybe 14, depending on the situation, or 12. But it's just, I'm not gonna have my children go in too early looking at these things. It's just, I don't know. I'm not gonna do that. I need to teach basic respect for when I have a son. I really, really, really want. If I have a son and he kind of disobeys me on every other thing, there's only one thing I really, really want him to actually follow for the rest of his life. I want to teach him how to properly treat and respect a woman. That is the one thing I want out of him the most, because that is like my highest value of respect for people that do that. I mean, obviously there's things I want him to learn. I want him to learn how to make money, how to handle money, how to work, you know, how to do things that people should know how to do, how to protect. Now that's one of the most important roles of a father figure in the home, is to be able to, you know, protect, provide, and teach. Be able to teach, you know, the lessons he's learned, either the hard way or the easy way. And I think that's kind of how it's supposed to be. This is kind of starting to break off from the point of this video, but, you know, I just wanted to emphasize kind of who I am, so you can kind of see why the angle I'm coming at with all these topics here. But how did all this happen? Like, how did Trump win by a landslide? How did all this happen when so many people were so confident that Kamala Harris was going to win? Let's rewind it back to 2016 and 2015. Remember when everybody was saying that Donald Trump was a clown? You know, they were like, you're not going to be president. You're not going to insult your way to the presidency. And he actually pulled it off. There were some people back then that said, oh, he's going to oppress these people, these minority groups of people. He's going to oppress them. The world's going to end. The country's going to hell. Like, that's kind of what people were thinking. But that didn't happen. And at least from my side of the world, I live in Missouri. At least in Missouri, from 2016 to 2020, I had some of the best years of my life that year. Things were great. I remember when prices were a little bit lower. There wasn't any global conflicts, really. I just liked the way things were. Now, do I agree 100% with everything Trump does? No. But you don't have to. That's the point. You don't have to fully agree to still, like, respect a candidate. I respect both candidates. You know, I think... I personally think there was probably better picks for both sides. But, you know, I still try to see the other viewpoint. Because if you don't try to see the other viewpoint, then it's all kind of pointless. Like, perspective is the most important thing to have, especially when you're coming at it with politics. I don't like being in politics. I've tried to stay out of it as much as possible, but there are times when I feel I need to address things. That's why I'm like here. I just wanted to tell people, you're not going to be oppressed. You're not going to be, like, arrested and put in a concentration camp. That's not going to happen. I'm trying to kind of calm you there and just kind of give you a little bit of hope for the future. And for all of you that are Republicans that are watching this, that's made it this far, hello. Feel free to talk to me in the comments. For both of you, actually, feel free to talk to me in the comments. You know, I like talking about this stuff. I like seeing all the different perspectives. But you know, we're not hateful people. The media, I don't understand where. I don't know about you, but I have read many books. I've seen many movies, and it's the root source for how governments maintain their power and maintain their brainwashing over the population has been the media. It's been the news outlets, the newspapers, the radios, and more recent modern stuff. It's the phones, what they're looking at on the internet, all this stuff. That is how they do it. That's how they've gotten power. That's how they did it in 1984. That's how they did it for V for Vendetta. That's even how they did it for the Hunger Games. The Lego Movie, funnily enough, is also a dystopian world. That's how they did it. Lego Movie is a perfect example because it shows you, hey, you need to do this. You need to follow the instructions every single day, and if not, we're gonna find you. It's like, no, you have to do it the way we're telling you, what we're showing you. You got to watch the same things every day, do the same things every day, and give us money. You're making us money. We'll pay you very low, But that's kind of what the Lego movie incites. I mean, even the line, "Oh, Lord Business is such a good guy. He makes all these cars and taxis. He also makes voting machines." Wait a minute.
Why else would you show up with that thing on your back just 3 days before President Business is going to use the crackle to end the world?
President Business is going to end the world? But he's such a good guy. In Octan, they make good stuff. Music, dairy products, coffee, TV shows, surveillance systems, all history books, voting machines. Wait a minute.
Yeah, I love that part in the movie, by the way. But you know, it's all this crazy stuff. I mean, Joe Biden came out, which actually I think this is probably Joe Biden's best speech of his entire presidency, was when he was giving his thoughts after Trump won the election. He was coherent. He actually looked happy, and he didn't mess up words. He wasn't a garbling, jumbling mess. He was very direct. He was like, listen.
I know for some people, it's a time for victory, to state the obvious. For others, it's a time of loss. Campaigns are contests of competing visions. The country chooses one or the other. We accept the choice the country made. I've said many times, you can't love your country only when you win. You can't love your neighbor only when you agree. Something I hope we can do, no matter who you voted for, is see each other not as adversaries, but as fellow Americans. Bring down the temperature.
Bring the heat down. He's like, this is just what, I'm quoting what he said here. But he was like, we're in a democracy. This is what happens. The people choose. And he was like, listen, we may not have got what we wanted this time, but that's just how it is. We don't win every single time. We lose occasionally, and this is just a little bit of a setback. He's like, next election, we'll see what the popular vote what the popularity of what all the people in America want to do. He was like, we're just going to do a peaceful transition of power. He's like, we're not going to do anything crazy. Well, okay, Joe Biden said he's not doing anything crazy. He's like, we're just gonna let it happen. He's like, don't go crazy. Don't do all this stuff. I believe Joe Biden was kind of addressing, we do not want a repeat of January 6th, but with all of you guys this time. He was like, no, we don't want that. He's like, this is just what you gotta accept. It's like, now listen, I was a Republican and Trump lost the election in 2020. Do I think it was rigged? No. I just kind of just like, oh, well, that sucks. And I just went on with my day. I didn't have this whole freak out session that's been kind of going around recently. But I mean, I kind of get it. You guys are actually afraid, so I'll cut you some slack there. And it's not your fault. I sincerely believe it is 100% the media's fault for portraying that, this candidate is evil, evil, evil. It is 100% their fault. It's not your fault. I believe that solely. I don't know. I mean, yeah, there was things I didn't like happening, the prices going up. COVID wasn't any of it wasn't Trump's fault, it wasn't Biden's fault. That was just such a random, it took the world by storm. Nobody could have prepared for that very well. Nobody could have perfectly prepared for that event. So, I mean, I don't give either president any blame for when it comes to COVID stuff, because that was just such a random global event that happened. I don't blame either side for any of that. They both did the best they could in the scenarios they were given. But I don't know, from 2020 to 2022, I had some rough times. That was more just my personal life. That had nothing to really do with the government. But it didn't help that prices went up, then global conflicts started happening. I started to notice these things. So how did all this happen? How did Trump win? Why am I going off on this little rambling here? So Trump lost the election, and Joe Biden was in office. It was at this moment that people started to see that Joe Biden was having some dementia or some kind of issues. I mean, we all knew he was just not mentally fit for the position he's in. I mean, Joe Biden tried the best he could. He really did. But I don't know. I mean, it just kind of comes with age. We're all going to get there at some point eventually. It's kind of scary to think about, but we all will. And once people started seeing that, and then people were going to Trump, they're like, hey, are you going to run again? And he didn't say yet. He was like, I am going to have an announcement. I think people are going to find it really, really happy. And then Trump announced that he was going to run for office again. And I kid you not, as soon as that happened, his house got raided. And I think his house got raided 4 times. And, they arrested him. They found all these files, all these documents, and they charged him with 34 felonies. And he was found guilty on all 34 of them. They sued him for like 400 and some odd million dollars. And everybody kind of thought, oh yeah, he's screwed from here. But that didn't happen. And it's kind of very weird and coincidental that as soon as he announced he was running for presidency that happened. That can't be a coincidence. I'm not a man of coincidence. But it didn't end there. So obviously you had the populace. They're like, oh, he's a felon. Why is he still running? So then I think there was a state, I think it was Colorado, they said they were going to take him off the ballot. And then they kind of had to reverse that because they just could not do that. It was kind of against the Constitution. They couldn't do that. So they tried to take him off the ballot. And then the presidential debate happened. And let's fast forward a little bit before we get to the debate with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Twitter. We all know it's not Twitter anymore. We all know it's X. Elon Musk bought Twitter, and there was a lot of stuff that went on with that company. There were some things that the company was like, you are not going to say this, or things are going to happen. So Elon Musk bought Twitter. He wanted to bring free speech back to that website because honestly, yeah, there's a bit of censorship. It's still everywhere. It's even on YouTube. Like if you've noticed, if you put a comment somewhere and it's just mysteriously disappeared, yeah, there's still censorship going on. And that is not a good thing to have. I mean, just because somebody has an opposite opinion of you doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to speak anymore. I mean, it's just how it is. That's what makes America great, is you can share your views, I can share my views. But the moment that we only limit it to one side and we just completely cancel out what the other side says and they can't say things anymore, that's infringing upon the First Amendment right. Even online, there was a bit of an argument that I was like, well, on social media, could you do it? It's like, no, you couldn't. Governments need to kind of stay out of there, because when you're trying to regulate a platform that is specifically used for communication, when you're regulating and cracking down and censoring people, that is an infringement of the First Amendment. But yeah, Elon Musk bought Twitter, and then Trump was back on Twitter. That was this whole deal. So just wanted to mention that. But the presidential debate between Trump and Joe Biden was a complete disaster. I mean, even Democrats knew that Joe Biden completely butchered it. And then after that, Trump knew he won that debate. But after that, Joe Biden dropped out of the race. He dropped out of the race. I believe the Democratic Party just basically kicked him out. They pretty much stabbed him in the back. They're like, yeah, no, you're not doing this anymore. You're done. We're not supporting you anymore. I don't think that's ever officially been said, but with the way Joe Biden's been acting towards the Democratic Party, it kind of makes me wonder if that's what happened. I think they fully just kicked him out because they're like, no, just let your vice president be the next running mate. And she skipped all the debates. She didn't have to debate other Democratic candidates. She just straight up was running. I think that was also a bit of a bad move. She didn't get enough experience to really... She just didn't get enough experience in debating. Like, she was just vice president, and the vice president doesn't really do too much in office. That's why, like, the claims of, like, with some of the Republicans saying, Kamala Harris, what were you doing this entire time in this presidency? It's like, to be fair to her, she was the vice president. She doesn't do too much as a vice president. She's kind of just there in case she needs to take over as president, or, you know, there is a role on the Congress side that the vice president does. So she doesn't really do too much in terms of that. They're like, oh, but when Joe Biden dropped out, she kind of became president. No, she was still vice president. Joe Biden didn't leave office. It's just, yeah. This is interesting. So all this is happening, and in the background, you have people like Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, Vivek, that's going around on all these college campuses talking to the younger community, saying, hey, here's my thoughts. What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this? So you have those three people specifically going around in colleges, and other people. Those are just, I think, the big three of that battleground. And then you had Elon Musk supporting Trump actively. And then, obviously, the Trump and Joe Rogan podcast. And Joe Rogan started endorsing Trump. And you started getting all these people siding with him. And it's just this trickle effect. You see all these dominoes falling into place. And you're kind of going, whoa, this is interesting to see. And then there's another candidate I'm going to talk about that also kind of played into this role. And it was RFK. I think he was running for Libertarian. I think he was just an independent candidate. I really liked some of what Robert F. Kennedy was saying. There's a few things to disagree. I kind of disagreed with him on like some of his Second Amendment stuff, but I did really like his, America's very unhealthy. We've had a massive health crisis in America because of the food industry. And I also liked his thoughts on the education. He actually put education in light. He's like, no, there are really big problems with the education system that we need to fix. It's more than just education. I think it's, like I've said earlier, I think it's the way that kids are being raised in the households. I think that's also part of it too. So I'm like, I don't know. If we can fix education, maybe we can kind of be that model that some kids don't have in the household, that we'd be like, hey, because I fully think school should be, I was very lucky to have my school teaching finance, like how to do taxes, how to apply for a loan, how to manage your money. I had cooking classes. There was one school in our area that did driving classes, but ours didn't do that. We just weren't big enough for that. But we actually had classes that taught us important things to do. A government class, history class, those are very, very important. Yes, reading, writing, and some arithmetic is great. I really don't see the point in forcing people to go past a certain point. I feel like Algebra 2 should be like the farthest you could go to. Everything after that, I think, should be optional, just depending on what your career is. If you want to be an engineer, great. Do all these math classes, do calculus 1, 2, and 3, and do all these other things. But if you're going to go into a job that doesn't require that much math, I really don't think you should be going off. You're going to need math, you're going to need writing, you're going to need reading, and you're really, really going to need, I think it's very important to understand history and to understand government. Because if you don't understand how your own government works and you do not understand history, you're not going to be able to fix the current problems of today. Now, you can't be dwelling and looking at the past too much, because if you're just looking behind you all the time, you're going to eventually trip and fall. You need to just know of the past so you can work on the present, so you can fix the future and make the future better. That's how it all is. But yeah, RFK, I like how Trump is like, hey, I'm going to put you in charge over the FDA administration. We're gonna have you fix the FDA. Of course, the FDA is freaking out right now, but there's honestly a lot, because if you look, there's a massive increase in health problems, specifically heart problems, and there's been a massive increase in obesity in the United States. So there's clearly problems with our food, and I'm kind of glad that they're addressing it now. It's been addressed with like the non-GMO things, but they were kind of focusing on things that weren't really that important in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, so. But there's another candidate that also, Tulsi Gabbard, I think that's how you say her name. She was a former Democrat, and she turned to the Republican Party. She just had enough of what the Democrats were doing, and she just switched to the Republican. Yeah, and that was kind of a major, like, you could see Trump's reaction of just relief, and it was just,
That I'm proud to stand here with you today, President Trump, and announce that I'm joining the Republican Party.
I was like, there's this whole meme with like the Trump team, or like the superheroes. You had Tulsi, you had RFK, you had Elon Musk, you had Donald Trump and Vance, his vice president. You just had all this lining up, and then the presidential. Some of this is a little out of order, so I will say the presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris was kind of sad to watch on both ends. My goodness. But after that, it's just all these landslide events happened, and then Pennsylvania happened. The assassination attempt in Pennsylvania, I think, was probably the biggest turning point. Because he survived the assassination attempt. He turned his head at just the perfect moment. And yeah, and that wasn't even the first, like, there was more assassination attempts, and I feel like just because of all this hate that's being spread towards Donald Trump, all this stuff that's going on, I think it's only going to get worse. And I hope that people kind of come to the realization that he's not, he's not evil. He's not going to be the next Hitler. There was a Holocaust survivor that came out that was actively kind of criticizing Kamala Harris, because this Holocaust survivor was like, no. He's like, Donald Trump is not Hitler. And this Holocaust survivor went on to say, you don't know Hitler like I do. I was there when he took my family. I was there when he did all this thing to the Jewish people and to the homosexuals and all these other things. He was like, I was there when they took people of different races that were of lesser extent. I was there when they took people of different ideologies. I was there when they did all this. He's like, no, you do not know you do not know Hitler like I do. And he was like, Donald Trump is not Hitler. And I'm like, it is very important to be having these veterans speak up, because they were there for those events, and those are the most important people to be listening to in times like these when you're so confused, like, oh, is this going to happen again? Is there going to be another Holocaust? If you talk to people that's been through it, they can tell you exactly what it looks like before it happens. And the fact that he said, no, it's not, that's not what's happening, it's a bit of a relieving factor. I probably should have led with that, honestly. Oops, well, there's editing for a reason. So yeah, all of this happened. It's been as the movie V for Vendetta puts it, it's like,
That's why I went to Lark Hill last night.
That's outside quarantine.
I had to see it. There wasn't much left. But when I was there, it was strange. I suddenly had this feeling that everything was connected. It's like I could see the whole thing. One long chain of events that stretched all the way back before Lark Hill. I felt like I could see everything that had happened. And everything that was going to happen. It was like a perfect pattern laid out in front of me. And I realized that we were all part of it. And all trapped by it.
So do you know what's going to happen?
No. It was a feeling. But I can guess. With so much chaos, someone will do something stupid. And when they do, things will turn nasty.
Rioters were arrested in Brixton.
And then Sutler will be forced to do the only thing he knows how to do. At which point, all V needs to do is keep his word. And then...
when I was standing there, it's like everything connected. I could see all of the events that happened, that are happening, and that will happen. It's like I'm watching all these dominoes falling, and they're all leading to one point. And it's just crazy. But, you know, what... I'm going to bring to light here. Yeah, I really like The Hunger Games, especially. That's actually my favorite movie in terms of, like, overthrowing a government. But there's two... Well, it's also a book, but, you know, and a movie. There's two movies that really come to mind here. You have V for Vendetta, and you have 1984. If you haven't watched or read either of those, I highly recommend it. V for Vendetta shows what happens when a government goes too far right. And 1984 shows what happens when a government goes too far left. And if you look at the contrast... You know what? No. Do it yourself, all right? I want you to watch those two movies or read the books. And I want you to kind of contrast the differences between the two and the relations with how that could happen in our government, or that are currently happening, because one of the books is currently happening. Spoiler alert, it's 1984. That's kind of the one we're kind of leading to closer. You know, because... just read the book and you'll find out what I mean. It's very interesting. The things that are happening. I think it's going to get better. At least for me, I think it's going to get better. Obviously, you know, the Democrats are going to think, oh, these next 4 years aren't going to be that good. And no, maybe it won't. I think it really depends on your mentality going into things. If you think things are going to be bad, they're going to be bad. If you look at things with optimism, I think they're going to be good. You know, I sincerely believe that I feel like both parties have kind of forgot the meaning of the word compromise. They forgot what that word is. Like a compromise, if you both can't come to an agreement, a compromise is kind of something that you both don't want, but you also... It's something that you both don't want, but you can both agree on it. That's kind of what a compromise is. right, I'm not going to get this, and you're not going to get this, but at least we can agree to disagree. That's kind of what a compromise is. If you kind of want an example, that's like, okay, let's say this didn't happen, by the way, in history. I'm just kind of saying, for an example, North and South Carolina, they wanted it, like, let's just pretend they wanted it as one state. But that one state would have had a lot of electoral votes, would have a big population. They were like, no, we need it to be, this. We need it to be this. And it's like, we want to do this in this state. So the Democrats want to do something in the northern end, and the Republicans want to do something on the southern end. But they both can't agree, so they come up with a compromise. Why don't we just split the state in two? We have a North and a South Carolina, and we can do our own thing. He's like, we're both not going to have the territory in the room we wanted, but we can both do our own thing. And that's kind of what a compromise is. If we can do that with things like abortion or the border crisis or global conflicts, if we can do that, I think things would be great. If we could work together. Trying to divide so heavily, trying to get it to where it's literally just a battle between good and evil. No, we shouldn't be dividing ourselves as crazily as we are, because the only way America's going to fall is from the inside. And we do not want that to happen. And that's only going to happen when we are not united, and we are not united against one common goal. And that one common goal should be to just, right now, that one common goal should be we need to survive. It's like, back in the day, they struck down laws. They wrote laws for moral reasons. They did all these things for moral reasons. We're not doing that anymore. That's why I'm like, the Democrats really don't want religion in government, but the Republicans are kind of founded off the ideology of religion. And if you really think about it, the Constitution was literally said, even by the founding fathers, that it was kind of a bit of an inspiration from God to do these things. I mean, people probably aren't going to believe you for that. If you're not religious, I get it. They literally mention rights, God-given rights. They mention it. The Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, it's there. I mean, there's people who are like, yeah, but things in, like, the Pledge of Allegiance, and one nation under God, that was not in the original Pledge of Allegiance. It wasn't. It was FDR that put that in there. I'm pretty sure it was FDR that put that in there, and he was a Democratic president. So, I don't know. The Democratic Party is also, like, just, I don't know. That's why I tend to vote conservative on things. And given if I put my religious thoughts into things, the conservatives really make sense. I mean, yeah, there are people, they're religious, like specifically Christianity, that are on the left, and I get that, but I don't know, at least in my perspective, that's what I'm saying. This is all kind of all up to you to decide. That's the great things about just seeing another perspective. You get to form your own thoughts. You get to see things that you might not have been able to see unless somebody else pointed it out. And that's just kind of the things I wanted to point out today. I'm trying to be a bit of like hey, it's going to be okay for the people that are freaking out. It's going to be great. And then I'm going to be talking to the people and be like, okay, so what's going to happen now that we have full control? I do like a bit of a balance, but it is slightly relieving that we have full control. But I'm like, what are we going to do to work with the other side to get things done? Because it's so hard to get things done when you have two opposing sides that are just clashing and not agreeing on something. It's so hard to get something done. I'm like, no, there are things that need to be done. We have an economy that we need to fix. We've got global conflicts that need to be resolved that are only going to be getting worse if we don't do anything about it. And we've got a boarding crisis. We've got all these people coming in, going into these states that don't require voter ID and voting. That shouldn't be allowed. They're taking all these jobs. I'm not saying they should be denied the opportunity to come here. Obviously, the the Republican idea is they should be coming here legally. It's not that we're not trying to keep them from coming in at all. We just want them to be here legally, go through the legal process, and that's great. Because there are countries that are worse than America. We do not have it terrible here. There are people that believe, we have it so bad in America. It's so oppressive here. No, it isn't. If you have seen or been to the other countries of things that's happening, if you've been to like Iran, or if you've been to just any other country in general that has really, really bad things going on there, they have conflicts, they have actual oppressive governments. America is one of the few countries that is a really good place to live in. It's one of the few countries that have freedom. I mean, there's a lot of places that have freedom. Belgium has freedom, France, UK, Italy, Germany, Australia, they all have freedom. But America is just one of the most culturally diverse areas to go to. There are so many people from so many different countries that's come here. And that's what makes America great. That's what makes it unique. You can see all these different people. You get to talk to all these different people. You get to see all these different cultures and ideas that, maybe you didn't get to see. And that's why it's great here. Of course, there's reasons to be worried. Yes, there are things that we should be talking about, and there's things we should be solving. I just think we need to be attacking things that are part of the bigger picture. Education has not been brought forward to light as much as it should be. I personally think it's a little stupid that we have abortion. We're talking about abortion more than we're talking about what's going on with education right now. I think education needs to be given a higher priority, especially since I'm going to be a teacher going into education. But yeah, that's kind of what my thoughts are. I kind of want to hear what you guys are thinking. Feel free to comment. I hope this reaches as many people as possible. I'm literally not doing this for views. I'm just doing this for people. Well, no, I kind of have to do it for views if I want people to watch it. But yeah, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to come out and say. And I personally am looking forward to the next 4 years. I think there's going to be a lot of really good things that are going to be done. There's also going to be some things that maybe aren't as good, but no side's perfect. No side's going to be perfect. There's going to be pluses and minuses to both sides, no matter what you look at it. Not one side is fully all good. There's going to be problems on both sides, and I can agree with that at least. But maybe one day there'll be a really, 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 really good Democratic candidate once the Democratic Party has kind of reformed some of their ideas. Maybe one day I might do it. It might happen depending on who the Republican candidate is. You never know. But that's just the thing. I don't know. Who knows who the next Republican candidate is going to be? Nikki Haley, I think, would be a really great option. I would 100% vote for her as a Republican candidate. I would be completely down with that, especially if she was the first female president. That would be awesome, having Nikki Haley as the first female president. Yeah, Nikki Haley said she doesn't agree with Trump on a lot of things, but she says there's a few things that we agree, and as long as we just respect each other, we're good. I'm like, yeah, Nikki Haley, I think would be a great candidate. People are talking about, what about Vance? I'm like, yeah, I think he's a great choice. I don't know. We'll just see. We'll see whenever that time comes. We'll see who the Democrats pick. We will see who the Republicans pick, and we'll get to see the battle out. So I believe with how political movements in society is going, we are eventually going to have a female president, which I am kind of looking forward to. I think it would be really, really cool to witness such a historical event. I think it would be awesome. It's just didn't happen this time. I kind of didn't want it to happen this time. There's just, I don't know. I had my reasons for voting Trump. But yeah, that's kind of what this is. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all leave your comments and have some. If there's any topic that I haven't discussed, or if you have any more further questions, if you're a Democrat, if you have any questions with how are you so confident that these things are going to happen or something like that, just let me know in the comments. I'll address it. I'll talk to as many people as I can. I don't have that massive of an audience, so I should be able to reply to about everybody. So, and at the very least, at least like your comment, I'll see it. So, hope you're all having a nice day. Things are going to get better for both sides. I think things are going to get better for both sides. We just got to move forward. We got to look at the positives of the outcome and figure out, okay, how do we work together to solve the current problems of today? Because right now, if we're just divisive and we're solving problems, we're only going to be creating more, and it's just going to get harder and harder and harder to solve problems. That's why we need to be coming together, not being so diverse with how things are going. And I hope that that's how it is. I'm trying to be as neutral as possible while also defending my own ideas. So it's kind of hard to balance the two. I hope I did a good job at this video of doing that. But yeah, so have a good day. If you're not a subscriber of my channel, you can go back to whatever you're doing. If you are a subscriber of my channel, look forward to more content. I do have more content on the way. So we'll see from there. But this is probably going to be the one and only video the second video I've done with a political topic. Well, no, yeah, this is the first one. The last one I did was more of a military history thing. talking about some of the issues with that today. If you want to go watch that tribute video, it's called What America Used to Be. It's kind of a terribly edited video. I'll probably go back later and make it better next year. But, hey, it's just what my thoughts are. So have a great day. Hope you're enjoying whatever it was you were doing before you saw this video. And I'll see you later. Maybe. I might see you again. If not, well, it was nice getting to talk. And yeah.